with some connection to many different people who are interested in Dharma. We don't have such a long time this evening, but our topic, I hope, is quite interesting. It's about our mind and what occurs for our mind. Buddhism, as I'm sure many of you know very well, begins with
não vou mexer muito
Buddha's
tempo,
teaching
mas
on
vamos fazer
suffering. As far as we know, stones don't suffer. The waves of the sea, when they crash on the rocks, don't suffer. But we suffer. We are sentient beings. We have a mind. The mind is the basis of suffering and pleasure. It's the site where we experience joy and sadness, anger, desire. Everything is arising as an experience. So, in the most general way, we need to get to know our mind. Right. So, if you have a mind, many complicated things occur, including Zoom. Some people have good karma with machines, and other people not so good. I have very bad karma with machines. But anyway, so we are concerned with the mind. Mind is the basis of experience. There are many theories about the mind in Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, modern science, and so on. That is to say, we have ideas about the mind. This indicates that we can think about the mind. We can think about it in the same way that we think about motor cars and aeroplanes and bananas. There is something there to be thought about. When we find ourselves reflecting on our life and our situation in this way, this is an indication that we are operating in the paradigm of duality. I am a subject, and I can think about objects. And one of the objects I can think about is my mind, which is kind of strange, because it is the mind that is the basis of being able to think about the mind. As if the mind is using me in my ego self to think about itself. But when we think of the mind in this way, we apprehend it, we take hold of it. We take hold of it as something, and we can attribute to our mind particular qualities. We can even compare the minds of people. We can say that person is more intelligent than the other person. That person's mind is more interesting than someone else's. That is to say, we take the qualities that we experience in a person as being indicative of the particular qualities of the mind of the person, that we can get to know someone's mind. So in psychology and psychiatry, people make a diagnosis to establish some definite knowledge about some problematic structure in that person's mind. And that gives us a sense that the world is comprehensible. But what is this actual mind itself? Because when I'm talking with you just now, I take it that my mind is involved in my being able to talk and present. So we could say my mind is revealing itself through this flow of presentation of words coming out of my mouth. So if when you hear what I say, you imagine, oh, James has these words inside him. These words come out of him because he has a lot of words inside him. His mind must be full of words. Well, I don't know what I'm going to say before I speak. So it's not as if they're stacked up on some production line waiting to jump out of my mouth. Due to the situation, due to causes and conditions, we find ourselves speaking. So the speaking comes through us. They seem to come from the mind, but the words don't stay long enough to look where they came from. They arise and vanish. We can imagine they come from the mind in terms of its relation to the voice box, but they've already vanished before we can catch them. What we take to be the experience of our mind is something flowing. So when I talk of my mind, it's as if my mind is an attribute or a quality of my ego self, a possession that I have. But this reference point of me is also a movement of concepts. Everything I say about myself is a construct. When we describe ourselves to someone else, we create images through words and concepts to create a flavor, which could be an invitation or a rejection. So even if I talk of my mind, this mind is established through both a quality of attention and a selection around its content. So I might want to tell you that I enjoy the spring blossom. That's a socially connective kind of comment. I'm aware of something and I communicate it. But at the moment, I'm aware of a slight irritation or sensitivity in my left knee. This is arising as part of my experience, but it is not really a social phenomenon. My knee and its sensation is in a sense, private. So this is our human condition. We have many, many different experiences which arise. Some we are happy to share with others. Some leak out of us, whether we want to share them or not. Our faces look sad, and people say, why? In some, we manage to keep secret inside ourselves. Some we keep secret and private to an extent that we ourselves lose consciousness of them. So in that way, our emergence out into being with ourselves and then further to being with others involves quite a lot of selectivity. Certain aspects are highlighted and others are kept in the shadow. From the Buddhist point of view, it's through this that we can see that we are a construct. I am constructing myself all the time, according to circumstances, some of which are external, some of which are internal. The ego self is a work in progress. It gets cut when we die, but up to that point, there is external stimulus, internal impulses, which bring about formation and new formations of how we present ourselves. This kind of reflection on our embodied being is a good preparation for meditation, so that we can soften the frozen or fixed structure of having a definite ego that continues through time. The continuity of myself is the continuity of my idea of myself. The content of how I am moment by moment is changing. But the idea of who I am, of what I am, that idea can be given a pseudo continuity. So when we take hold of the idea of ourselves, it is as if we have found something which exists outside time, that we have a sense that we have always just been ourselves. But this is an idea. The actuality of our existence is that moment by moment is changing. The phenomena of our life are like water flowing down a river. The continuity of our sense of self is like the name of the river. When we operate in our social world, we are relying on conceptual identification to establish the stability and predictability of our existence. But each of these concepts arises and passes in our mind. When we speak, the words come out of silence and go back into silence. On the basis of the movement of our mind, our body moves. Each movement arises and vanishes. When we observe ourselves, when we stay close to the emergence of the actual presenting of how we are, we find that we are movement. The movement is always changing. Object comes onto subject, subject goes on to object. The reason we reflect in this way is to see whether our ordinary sense, I exist, I am this person, is actually true or not. If I say I exist, this is a declaration, a proclamation. But what does it establish? Because the mode of my body, my speech, my mind is changing. what is established is the idea of the continuity of myself. So in this, we can see these two streams, the actual stream of moment by moment disclosure and then vanishing. And then, like a parallel stream, we have the mode of interpretation. And the interpretation seems to be solid and reliable. I exist. I'm alive. I'm Scottish. We can say all sorts of things about ourselves. And it's as if the semantic content, the meaning content of what has been said is like carving your initials on a tree. It seems to leave a mark. But it's more actually like pissing in the river. The river is water flowing and the piss goes into the river and flows on. It's a flow into a flow. Nothing is established except the momentary pattern of the flow of urine as it hits the water. There is a pattern. It's undeniable there is a pattern. You see it, but it vanishes. The vanishing patterning is what we call my life, my world. If life was as fixed as we sometimes would want it to be, we would find ourselves imprisoned. Now with the virus, we have a lockdown, and that restricts our freedom to act and to follow our desires and wishes. This is, for many people, this is not very comfortable. They're not able to flow as they would like to flow. They're forced to sit in one place, and like water trapped in a small pond, we can easily become stagnant. We like something to be happening. And this is because we are something happening. Each of us is a flow within the great river of life. Through our five senses, we have streams of experience coming into us, and we stream out into the world with our responses. That is to say, the environment that we're in is not a fixed container. We're not like new shoes in a box. But the environment shifts with the wind, with the time of day and the shadows and so on. It's a moving field that we are moving in. And as this movement flows along, we find ourselves with our selective attention trying to maintain some sense of the enduring profile of our own existence. This may not be at all how we think about our lives. We're aware that we have many different thoughts and feelings. Often they perhaps don't seem to have much meaning to them, much sense. We don't know why we feel the way we do. But each of these emergent experiences is incorporated as part of my momentary profile of how I am. Because I am not something which is fixed. I am becoming. I'm disclosing how I am. We disclose ourselves out to others and back to ourselves. Start to see, the content of my mind is a flow of experience. Everything is impermanent. All outer phenomena, all inner phenomena, our body with its breathing, its blood flowing around, its hormones shifting and changing, we are dynamic. And this dynamism is our participation in the world. So when we try to find what is this stable point, because I know I exist, so I must be here, but where am I? If I say I'm in this room and it looks like this according to the time of day. The sun is going down, so I already put the electric light on. These movements of the light across the room highlight certain features and put more others in shadow. So this brings us to a very important point in the Buddhist understanding, which is the difference between the what and the how. I can describe the room in terms of what is in it, books, paintings, and so on. And I can build up a picture for you, a description. And this can give a sense of a definite knowledge, something substantial. Now you know something about something. And this is our ordinary way of proceeding. It has a kind of illumination in it, but it's a conceptual illumination. because I can close my eyes and imagine how the room is and describe it just from my memory. But that's describing what structure or image I have of the room in my mind, fixed as being a truth. But if I think about how the room is, I'm sitting near the window. It's a north-facing window. And as the sun goes down, the air becomes cool. And I can feel that shift in temperature, particularly on my left shoulder. This is a dynamic, revelatory experience. It's not a what, it's a relational emergence between how I'm sitting, the time of the day, the angle of the sun, and so on. It is emergent. It's not a thing that I am thinking about or talking about, but it emerges for me according to how I attend to it. By registering the shift in the temperature, this quality emerging in the room becomes more figural for me, more central, and so I tend to it more. This is my lived presence in the room. The room is not a fixed thing in terms of experience, and I am not a fixed thing in terms of experience. So these are movements or streams interacting, shifting, changing. Thoughts, feelings, memories, plans, intentions. These are ways in which I can, like the snow queen, I can just touch the momentary phenomena of the world and freeze them in an instant. Oh, something I can take hold of. So I can say things like, oh, today it was very warm in London. Quite surprising for April. This is an amazing thing to say. What is April? This is a concept. I mean, I can say this tea is better than that tea, or at least it looks like there's something to compare. But if I say this April is warmer than that April, this is just like sand pouring through our fingers. Last April has gone, and this April, I'm in the middle of it, has no particular shape. And yet it appears somehow meaningful to say, this is a warm April. In this way, we can see, oh, I am compounding the world. I'm bringing together these aspects of perception, of mental activity, of feeling tone, and creating a composite and speaking in terms of conclusions. This is a warm April. So what can I point to as this April? Nothing. And yet somehow this April is evoked just by the use of the words. So in Buddhism, this is referred to as imagining an inherent existence in phenomena. The actuality is ungraspable, but in our conceptual structuring, in our creativity, we somehow establish for ourselves phenomena as entities which can endure in time and be taken hold of with our mind. So I can pick up my pen and put it down. This is the quality of the hand that's able to take hold of an object and lift it and lower it. But it can appear also that we do the same with our mind, as if our mind has hands that take hold of something in the world. You think, oh, I need to think about that. I need to hold it in mind. The idea seems to be something which can be just summoned, and then it will come back. So the idea seems to be something that you can summon, as if you were beckoning to a waiter in a restaurant. And in that way, we seem to create formations of thought and interpretation which are revelatory of the truth of our life. The basic structure for this is the sense I exist, the world exists, and between us there are activities of transaction. There is a fundamental duality. I am not the world and the world is not me. My integrity as me depends on the separation from the phenomena around me. If the world comes onto me too strongly, then my body could be damaged if a car hit me. At the same time, if I had no access to the world, I would starve and of thirst and hunger. So I need connectivity with the environment, but at the same time, I'm saying this is all not me. Me and not me, two absolutely oppositional categories. When I eat the cake, which is not me, becomes me. And then when I go to the toilet, the feces, which were me, become not me. So this is very fascinating. So the sense of myself is like a circle, and something crosses the border into it. And now we say, welcome, you're a citizen of my existence. And then something passes out of this circle and we say, goodbye, no, you're not me anymore. Don't come back. So identification, what is the status of phenomena, is an ongoing activity for the maintenance of our sense of being an individual self. And we do this with our possessions. When you're a child and you go to school and you have to do some physical things and take your shoes and socks off, you have to be sure you put your own socks on. So in England, your mum is going to stitch a little tag with your name on it onto the socks. On the floor of the changing room, there are many socks, but which are my socks? So in that way, although socks are pretty much the same size for the kids, my socks are different. And my socks are different because they're mine. We look at the socks, are all the same, but these are mine. They are special because they are mine. Somehow I am poured into the socks, and the socks are now shining with the value of me. So we see this in so many phenomena in the world. Everything is open and available. But in our embodiment, we make our choices, making some things very important and other things not so important. And with time, with our mood, this value which we project onto the object shifts and changes. So now, now perhaps we can start to see that not only am I flowing in a world which is flowing, but my difference from this environment around me is established by naming and conceptual differentiation. The differentiation of self and other is based on the concept of self and other. Of course, the phenomena present themselves with the specificity of their color, shape, and so on. But when we experience ourselves sitting like just now, we see, I am here, I experience this body here, and I experience the here-ness of where I am. The room is my experience. My body is my experience. My mood is my experience. What is arising for me is the room and me. Both are revelation. The room reveals itself in its specificity in this moment, and I'm revealed to myself in the specificity of this moment, how I'm feeling and so on. My subjectivity is an emergence into this moment. And the objectivity of what I take to be the room around me, this is also an emergence into this field of experience. So subject and object arise together as the movement of the energy of the mind. I am my experience of me. That is to say, the subject seems to be the one who is experiencing, and yet is also something which we can experience. So you can practice, for example, mindful walking. You're walking slowly, carefully, and you're mindful of this occurring, paying an exquisite attention to each shift in the muscles as they turn, as you move up and down the path. And we can also be mindful of the fact that we're mindful of the fact that we're walking. And we can become even more mindful of the fact that we're mindful of being mindful as we walk along the path, as if we had a kind of telephoto lens and we could set the magnification and have more and more sense of the overview of this emergent experience. The one who is mindful is also available as an object for mindfulness. So I'm talking, but I'm also mindful that I'm talking. If one might think, well, the act of speaking is a movement of subjectivity. I, the subject, I'm talking. But I can also keep an eye on myself. I am aware that I am talking. I observe the fact that I am talking. So the one who is talking is an object for the one who is keeping an eye on the one who is talking. I am simultaneously subject and object. In this mode of examination, we can see, oh, everything is dynamic, and that's useful for loosening us up and finding more freedom. But we are still within the frame of duality, because I can see, yes, okay, I can be an object. The one who is speaking can be an object for the one who is attentive to the one who is speaking, who is now the subject. So the, the subject and object arise together, but they seem like points of view. If I look in this way, it seems to be object. If I look in that way, I seem to be the subject. There is still a difference between the two. And in fact, there's more than two, because I'm aware of being an object which is under investigation. So this becomes an impasse, a kind of blockage. To get beyond this, we need to engage in meditation. Meditation is a way of easing ourselves out of our over-reliance on concepts. Concepts are not the enemy. They are vehicles of connectivity. But when we misappropriate them as vehicles of profound meaning, we cheat ourselves. Thoughts, feelings, sensations are dynamic, moving, mutually interactive, mutually transformative. And because of this, movement doesn't generate stability, yet it seems to. And so we spend our lives constructing our sense of our existence. But we're doing this from ingredients which are movement. So if we want to make rapid progress in meditation, it's very important to do this kind of investigation and observation at the beginning, because it's like a massage. It softens the knots and allows the muscles to move freely and easily and joyfully. You see, oh, I'm taking myself to be the subject. My subjectivity is performative. It's not the showing of some fixed inner essence. There's no inner truth or definition which is the basis for my emergence in this particular way, but I become the subject through being the subject. I become the object through being the object. And these beings are co-emergent moments which don't endure and which are not autonomous. They're not freestanding, self-existing. Everything I encounter is a display which arises and passes in the clarity of the mind. So you could buy a psychology book on neuropsychology, turn the pages, and you read about the amygdala and the cortex and the frontal lobes and so on. Now I know about my brain. And you might believe that the mind is an aspect of the brain. What you know about is, you know how neuropsychologists think about the brain. Now you have ideas about ideas. And then you need to make a cup of tea. And in the process of making the cup of tea, it's not necessary to think about the quality of your sympathetic nervous system. If you were in a trauma situation, a shock situation, it might be important to reflect on the health of your sympathetic nervous system. So these kinds of information or knowledge are situationally valid. In particular situations, they may be very useful, but they're not useful in every situation. And so you need to get more and more keys to open more and more doors in life, acquire different kinds of information, different skills, and a sensitivity as to when is the right time and situation to apply them. Because in human relations, there is a time to confront and a time not to confront. We are creatures of pulsation, moving forward and back, expanding and contracting. All of this is movement. How do we know it's movement? We're aware of it. What is this awareness? What is it like? Is my awareness inside my body? When we raise a question like this, it's very tempting to bring together some information you may have acquired somewhere else. So you might believe, of course, my mind is in my body because my mind is a function of my brain. This is a story you are telling yourself. For some people, it's quite a reassuring story. Essentially, it's a sequence of concepts and evaluative emotions moving together that give you a sense, oh yeah, that's how I am. That is to say, the idea that my mind is generated by the electrochemical activity in my brain is a sequence of concepts. We have been trained to appreciate and enjoy the particular kind of clarity which can be generated by the movement of concepts. By patterning the concepts in a particular way, you can come to a definite conclusion. We often like to believe that our conclusion is expressive of facts, but in fact, of course, it's beliefs, because in the field of neuroscience, there are many, many different opinions. People come at the analysis of the brain from different points of view. So in this way, we can see, oh my God, there is no end to thinking. Thoughts about thoughts about thoughts, the history of human knowledge. We can go back and compare the ancient Greek philosophers and what their views were of psychology. And then we know what these ancient Greeks thought. This is another aspect of thoughts about thoughts. This is samsara. This is the vital quality of our limitation. It's like being in a vast forest. You grow up in a family which is a particular kind of pathway in the forest. Then you fall in love and you go down another pathway. You get a job, you go down another pathway. You decide to study something new, you go down another pathway. In this forest, there are millions of pathways. Some seem quite broad, and when you look up, you even get a glimpse of the sky. Some are quite narrow and give you almost no vision of what is occurring. But anyway, all these pathways are within the forest. They don't take you out of the forest because you are the one who is walking, wandering in samsara. You are the doer of the walking, of the talking, of the eating, of the sleeping. Whatever is happening, you come back to this central interpretive point, I, me, myself. When through our own observation, we see, oh God, this is really how it is. Is there nothing else? Then the teaching of the Buddha starts to become meaningful. He says, don't just change the pathway. This suffering or this lostness or this fantasy construction has a beginning. And because it has a beginning, it can have an end. It emerges as ignorance, which is part of the potential of the mind itself. And it's maintained by constantly observing what's arising in the mind, we might say the content of the mind, and trying to find within that transient content the absolute truth. It's not that we are bad people or stupid people, but we look in the wrong place. If you want to find what is relaxed and open and peaceful, how will you expect to find it in the midst of movement? So rather than chasing the appearances which arise through the five senses and the thoughts, memories, sensations, and so on that arise for you in a more intimate way, our question is, who is the one who is aware? You can answer this or attempt to answer it through the application of concepts. You can interpret yourself to yourself, but you know where that leads. That's just another set of pathways in the dark forest. So what we do is we simply sit in a relaxed way, our skeleton carrying our weight, muscles relaxed, diaphragm relaxed. breathing in an easy, ordinary way, with our gaze open. Our hearing, anyway, is always open. Experiences arising. Some looks outside, some inside. Don't judge. Allow the arising of experience to show itself. This is an experience, this is appearing, this is emergent and gone, whether it seems to be in the body or outside the body. When we sit, we realize, oh, I don't seem to have a fixed body. Sometimes my back emerges as the center of me. I have a pain. We can sit for a while and then suddenly we are aware of our legs. On the level of awareness, the body is discontinuous. Why? Because it's not a thing. The same with the room, with memories, with thoughts. They arise and a particular formation is there and then it's vanishing. This is our life. It is mysterious. It's not a thing you can grasp and take hold of. Life is flowing. We are present with it. Fundamentally, we are not present with it as ourselves. Our fundamental awareness doesn't have any content of its own. This is not a creed. It's not a dogma, a statement of belief. Because when you stay present with yourself, you find your experiences shifting. Thoughts, sensations, feelings, parts of the body, what you hear outside, what takes your attention, pulsations arising and vanishing, arising and vanishing. And if we are relaxed and don't get engaged, don't try to sort it out or get more of what we like and less of what we don't like, then we see it's all flowing. And the status of everything which occurs is simply a moment in the flow. No moment is intrinsically, inherently more important than any other. The attribution of value is relational. So if your mum dies, you probably feel more upset than if someone else's mum dies. 2 old women are dying. Hey, don't talk about my mother in that way. This is my mother. Come on. Not an old woman, my mother. She is special because she's my mother. This is relational. This is the movement of subject and object together. On the level of open awareness, it's just the arising and passing of phenomena. Calm, clear, without impact. Now, this might seem very bleak, very cold, but it's not the whole story. We are not just an open awareness showing what is there in the manner of a mirror. The openness or purity or uncontaminatedness of this mirror or capacity to show the illuminating quality of the mind is there, but it's also illuminating something. What is being illuminated? The movement. What is moving? Experience. Your life. Your life is not like anyone else's life. If you stay close to experience, you have the unique specificity of how it is. How it is how it is for me. In that moment, there is the non-duality of the open purity of the mirror and the ceaseless play of the reflections. So we can sit in a meditation like that, clear, open, inactive, not engaged in any choices, and we allow the flow of experience to emerge in all its rich complexity. And at the same time, we are here. When you've been sitting for some time, you get up, you go to make a coffee, you go into the kitchen, maybe you have different kinds of coffee, you have different kinds of cup or mug, you make a choice. A formation, a particularization of the formation of yourself in this moment. You are fresh born into this moment. No matter how old your body is, each moment is fresh. So the open mirror, which has no content of its own, is always full of reflections, of images, some of which look like objects, some of which look like subject. And one aspect of that emergence is what we take to be I, me, myself. I am a dynamic emergence in the field of emergence. Okay, I am a dynamic emergence in the field of emergence. I am within the field. I am unique and specific. I'm not made in a factory. For each of us, our life is something amazingly precise, but this specificity is not grounded in some inner core essence of me. The essence of me is the open mind, which is like the sky or like the ocean. It is vast, and you cannot find the limit of it, the depth of it. And within this, you have the showing of the clouds in the sky, the rainbows, or the waves of the ocean. And within this field of movement, here we are now alive in this moment, in this formation. When we see the birds flying in the sky, we see the particular specificity of a bird. When we look at the bird, we think, oh yeah, that's a sparrow or that's a swallow. A bird is just a bird. But now it's springtime and the birds are looking for a mate. Yeah, and they become very particular. They fight each other. Hey, this is my girl, leave her alone. So each form of life has its own particular specificity as an aspect of the emergence of the creativity of the ground. I am a movement within my mind. The mind, my mind, is open like the sky. This sky shows the display of the field, the experiential field, the houses, people, cars, and so on, within which I'm present. And within that, here I am, finding myself, becoming who I take myself to be according to the presenting circumstances. We might say, I am part of the play, of the interaction of manifesting factors in the field. I am part of the play. I'm not apart. I'm not separate. I'm not autonomous. The delusion of separation arises when the open ground, the infinite ground, is lost sight of, and we overfixate on the shape of phenomena. So we're just about at the end of our time this evening. At the beginning of May, we have a day. And in that day, we'll be able to do some more actual meditation practice, and that hopefully will be helpful. But what we've looked at this evening is a way, an approach of softening the seeming rigid solidity of the world we inhabit. Practically, it's not a thing. So when you talk with different people, just observe how you feel relaxed with some and reserved with others. And the more you see this directly, it's not that I am like this, I am choosing to be like this. But according to these circumstances, I emerge in this way. And that means, oh, I am part of the flow. So it's a pleasure to be with you this evening briefly. And I would like to thank Juan for translating in Spanish and Milton for translating to Portuguese. And for Zhao for helping to organize this. Although you've been looking at my face, if you have been doing that, many other people have been involved in making this event possible, because our life emerges as a myriad of interactive pulsations. So we come to an end now, and perhaps we meet again in this strange way.
James.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, James.
Bye. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Thank you.